Hey pilots, got a bonus video for you this week. I wanted to do a kind of backseat ride-along replay review, if you will, for a guy that is in Warplanes that I spoke with in Discord channel, Lose Dudes. He said it was not a very good performance, and while he doesn't necessarily rack up, winged legend level personal points, I do think there's some good instincts here and some things he did right. And so I wanted to walk through the match with you guys and kind of show you what went on and point out some things that might could have gone better, but also show you some things that I think he does really well. If you'd like for me to review some of your replays, please let me know. I did, this is not actually the replay. This is uploaded to YouTube, and so I've got screen capture going right now to work on that. I started to have him send me the replay, but the reality was I wanted to see the battle through his eyes. And you'll notice, this is not, he's working with about 20 frames per second. And the reality is this is something that every person in World War Planes, whether they're YouTubing or giving advice on Discord or in the forums, needs to understand. And that is that, and I think I've said this before many times, but the average pilot does not have a 10 skill point guy and tons of premiums, and they haven't been playing this for years, and they're not running, World War Planes at 1080p or 2K, right, and at 120 frames per second. That's not the average player. And so it's not the player that needs advice and help, right? You got to tailor what you're talking about. So we're going to look at it through Lose Dude's eyes here in this match, flying the I-250. Which is the plane that I just featured, which is what got this conversation started. And so we're going to talk a little about energy fighting and turn fighting and then map strategy as well watching this. So we have the map with airbase in the center, 2 rocket bases, 2 garrisons. So we know what's going to be important. And where we should go and how we should deal with things, right? He is rocking, it looks like, a lightweight wing frame and extra boost, and then gun sight. So a hybrid setup, essentially, working on max speed and then also working on this. I don't know if the aircraft is maxed on modules yet or not, but that's be something worth talking about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the equipment setup and stuff as we go, because I have some thoughts on that as well. But let's just go ahead and dive into it and look at what happens and check out some of the gameplay here. So there's black boxes on your screen because this is, again, from YouTube and so wide framed. So first things first, calling for a bot attack on the airbase. Calling for bots on sectors is F2, against other planes is F4, to save your own butt is F7. All those are good hotkeys to know. At the start of the match, it really doesn't make a difference. The bots are going to go where they're going to go. So you can always hit F2, but really what's going to happen, and you can see that here, is the bot that responded to you, and it'll only be one bot that responds to your request, is already someone who's headed there. So at the beginning of the match, it's not necessary to hit F2 or F4 on anything. The bots are kind of already on rails at that point. It's later in the match when the chaos comes in that hitting those buttons becomes most useful. Now, I'm going to back up just a second here. So we need to see what we're working with. And one of the things I tell World of Tanks players, if I could give you like top tips for being a better player, right, is know what you're fighting against. And that is just an underrated part of doing well in any match. So good job checking, tabbing in and checking what you're working with on your side and on theirs, because that's going to be incredibly important for any match that you're in. So on your side, Specialized XP67, on our side, on blue team, Specialized P80, that's wonderful. We got a pair of Specialized aircraft that are pretty good. And then your 250, Lose Dudes 250, and then on the red team, a matched flight, Specialized 262, Specialized B29C, and a P82B. So these are fairly well matched. Oh, I guess there's a fourth one up there, and that's the P1086. So who is the fourth guy on this side then? Mikolo then, maybe? That's a good question. I think it's Mikolo. I don't think that is one of the pre-programmed names. So if that's so, that would be an IL-40 on that side. So, fairly balanced teams, all things considered. And already you've got some folks working on the airbase and the garrison, the garrison and the rocket base. And then, we got a few headed to the airbase here. So good checking. Right off the bat, we see the 262 coming in low. And that's worth taking a shot at, right? That's worth following him up. He's obviously burned his boost to get horizontal, to get fast, to get to the airfield as quickly as possible. And so taking a few pot shots is good. And you did the right thing in breaking off here. You know, kind of making sure he doesn't follow up to stall speed. And look, there's another plane up here we can deal with. And this is great. Already we're playing the plane the right way. We're in the vertical. It's a high altitude plane. You're only 400 meters over optimal altitude right now. And so even though the plane is moving slow, we've banked a lot of that energy in the altitude, which is great. And the 209 is also moving about the same speed. Watch. Right, it's moving away, but not very quickly. You know, only moving 20 meters right in that little bit. And so we're able to keep up with them. And this is a great opening play, especially with the bot planes up here as well. This is a tier 8-9 match, by the way, and that's worth noting. It means that the air defense aircraft are a little harder to shoot down. The AA is going to hit a little harder. Good job pulsing the guns too, getting things back online. One thing to recommend to players is if you don't have your secondary weapon group or primary weapon group, I would recommend secondary though on a separate button. That is a nice move to make. I have my secondary group slaved to my side mouse button. So in instances like that, I stop using the left mouse button and start using the side mouse button. So the 23 millimeters keep firing. And the 37 millimeter has a chance to cool off, and that's sometimes helpful in these situations, especially when you need the extra burst to knock a plane out of the air, like right there. And then we're going to trade some altitude for speed, which is great. We're going to dive, and there's a target right there. One of the things to note, though, I'm going to back this up a little bit, is when we're first aiming, we're aiming not far enough ahead of the plane, right? I want to give a little more lead time. Early on, warplanes had a lead indicator, and they took it out. I'm not sure that was the best idea, but especially with the other changes that came into 2.0, but it's what we're stuck with. So a little more lead, especially for the guns on the 250, which are low-velocity cannons. That means the shell takes longer to travel into the distance, and so when guns are lower velocity, there needs to be more lead time on them. So eventually, though, we dial it in. Here's the other thing, by the way, the 37 millimeter does not have the full range that the 23s do. So we opened fire at the spot where the 23s had range, but the 37 didn't. And so the 37 wasn't going to do anything at 700 meters. So if you watch some videos, especially Kame is really good about this, waiting to open fire until all weapons are in space. Mistake number one of the match. We dove, we had all that potential energy, we unloaded into speed, we got up to a massive speed, which is great. And this is an energy fighter, it is not a turn fighter. And so right there, the best thing to do would have been to up and over, bank that extra energy back into altitude if you're going to loop back over the area. Instead, there is a side horizontal turn, a turn and burn style maneuver, and watch the speed get dumped, right? So when we come out of that, we're at 562. So at the beginning of the dive, we're at 690, 690, 700, right? Loop over, put it back in the altitude bank, get up to 2200. Instead, we went from 700 to 540 in the midst of that turn, and so we lost 150 kilometers per hour in speed. And we got nothing in return for it. The only thing we got was going a different direction. And we could have done that in the up and over just as easily and gained something from it. So that's something to think about in energy fighters like this. And you're going to see the one thing that bots have been programmed to do well. This is an energy trap. So already moving slowly, a little more slowly than we were. We've dumped that speed, right? And this F2G is doing active maneuvering, and he's also braking. So he's diving down, but watch, he's going to come up and loop over. And that is a displacement roll in front, right? A defensive displacement roll. And he is going to force you as the combatant, as the predator, to slow down if you want to deal with him, to keep from overshooting him. And it is a trap for a reason, and that is because most of the time you do not want to walk into it. So watch our speed from 550 to 400 to 370 to 350 by the time we finally get the kill. So Ezra at that point is not a player, but if he was a player, that would have been the smart move to make, because he's done the next best thing. He knows he's going to die. He knows he can't get away. And if you're fighting defensively in a no-win situation, the best thing you can do is waste the time and energy of the pilot behind you. And the bots actually do a very good job of that. And so we're down now to 1,100 meters and moving very slowly. And that's going to be a problem, because one of the other things that you should be doing as a good pilot, anyone who plays World of Warplanes, is just like tanks, you should be checking your mini-map every 10 seconds. Have you guys looked at the mini-map yet? All right, if you have, then you notice what I've noticed on the mini-map, which is we have a lot of red coming in directly 180 degrees behind us on our stern. And that's a problem because we don't have altitude, we don't have speed, and we're going to have to deal with hostiles incoming. So best thing to do right here will be get some altitude and speed. And there is the 262 again, and it's tempting to take the pot shot on him, but he's 678, he's moving at high speed. Only the 23s can hit him at this range. The 37 cannot do anything. And again, there's red behind us that we're going to have to deal with, right? So we get a couple of hit points of damage in. This is where we need to gain altitude, gain speed, right? Be banking stuff in and preparing for that next wave of combat. But it's another side turn, and we continue to stay low. We pick up a little bit in the dive and the boost, which is not bad. And this is a great maneuver, by the way. So this is a little bit of an Immelmann to pick up that extra speed because Lose Dudes has recognized the 262 is coming for another pass. And so he wants to get a piece of that action, and that is a great idea. And he also trying to help out a fellow teammate here. You can see the specialized P80 in the background there is doing the fighting with the 262, and the 262 is making a cardinal sin mistake, which is trying to turn fight with a light fighter. Bad idea, right? So this is great. Again, you know, we do have range here, but the only range we have is with the 23s, so we need to be aware of that, right? And fortunately, in this case, although we did get some hits, that's why you can see the numbers to the white numbers to the right of the HP. Ultimately, the P80 gets the kill, but it's okay. You know, our nose is pointing in the right direction. Let's get some boost and get back up in the air. But we stay at 1100 altitude. We are checking the map again, and we are checking the box score again, and that is excellent. We want to do that fairly often. We get a chance in battle, and we're off to a decent start here, I feel like, not only in terms of the cap space, but in terms of the battle and winning the battle over the airfield, right? So we're moving in the right direction here. So what do we do at this point? Someone has pinged the map. The XP67 has pinged the map. We need the rocket base. And that is true. And you do have a bomber over there, a bot bomber working on it. And it looks like a bot chasing him, light fighter chasing him. So what should you do at this point? I mean, we're balanced scale, right? And we got these two rocket bases going back and forth. There's a bomber and a multi-role. And it looks like maybe another multi-role incoming. So I think staying in this zone is the right move to make. And watch this. Lose, this is probably the best move defensively that you could make. Watch this tuck and roll that he does. That is perfection. You see the tracers trying to keep up with him and not being able to, forcing the nose of the bot aircraft to track him in 3 dimensions. And, you know, the bots are not able to do that. Most players are not able to do that. And we have Jawa sighting. We've picked up some altitude and speed, and we're looking at the Jawa, which is fine, you know, if we're checking to see if he's turning around on us. But we should notice 2 things. 1, our P80 has the Jawa in his sights. That's great. And 2, our nose is already pointed at another plane in front of us. And since we are an energy fighter and not a turn and burn fighter, the best thing we can do is actually keep going forward. If you look at the bottom of the mini-map, or right in front of Lose Dudes 250, there's not only another plane that is circling the airfield that is dangerous, but he's pointed in such a way that if we continue our climb and our boost, then we'll end up on his tail. And so that should be a fairly easy kill for us. But unfortunately, the move is a turn. There's a little bit of a tuck and roll on that, right? I'm not sure if that was instinctual or Lose, you saw that coming. But you know, if so, good defensive flying again. But that we want that to be our target right there. Unfortunately, we moved back to the original one, which is now, you know, two of our players, one of our players and one of our bots is on that one. Stick to the other multi-role, right? Now we got 3 on 1, and we have 1 enemy plane roaming unchecked in the background, right? Instead of lining up and taking. Now that's not how, you know, in real life, there's a little bit of ganging up that happens, but in the game, the best thing is that one-on-one, right? So this is great, you know, in the sense that we are going to get this guy shot down. But again, it's been 10 more seconds to check the mini-map, right? We've got 2 planes incoming, and we have to worry about those. And who are they, and what are they? Do we know at this point, right? They're just arrows in the background. So we should be a little nervous about that. And already you can see one of them, and we can see the double hull. So we know that's the player. That's the P82B coming in, right? So that's something to watch for. And then we can see up top is the other multi-role, which we have left unchecked at this point. And because we've left unchecked that other multi-role, he is now engaging our planes and put our planes on the defensive. So at this point, if you haven't checked the map again, it's been 10 more seconds, and there are multiple planes behind us now in addition to the planes in front of us. So while that multi-role is dead, we've lost our tail control surfaces, and we've lost a lot of hit points. And there's multiple enemies on the back side of us. And so when Lose Dudes does his rollout here, you can immediately see bad dudes behind us. The plane is on fire. The plane has broken control surfaces, and we have planes on us, and that's not good. And there you go. It's the 262, which has done a diving attack on us and shredded us pretty darn good. And that's a problem. Priority here, of course, is tapping the fire extinguisher button, and I do recommend the fire extinguisher. You can die if your plane is on fire and you don't put it out, especially if you don't have the skill, if you have nothing there, right? If your pilot gets hit, you can still survive, and you can still maneuver just fine. The pilot debuffs only affect the aim, and so I would recommend running a fire extinguisher rather than a first aid kit, although I know players who do the other way. That's just my 2 cents. So unfortunately, with the plane on fire, we're not able to get to the fire extinguisher in time, and we are destroyed. So why are we destroyed the first time? Because the 262 is a better plane, because it's specialized? No, actually, because of map awareness, right? Map awareness would have allowed us to kind of maneuver around and hopefully at least be more defensive, right? We were kind of a sitting duck in that scenario because low altitude, low speed, and not being aware of what was coming in around us. Now, that's a mistake that even veteran pilots make, not checking the mini-map regularly, right? I fall prey to it at least once a night, so, and I know other people do too. So it's great to have head on a swivel, great to have that mini-map set and be checking it. One of the changes I've made in my return to World War Planes is shrinking that mini-map down to the 2K. There's less stuff to worry about, less things to see, and less information to process. And essentially, I know if there's any red dot within 2K of me, that's a potential threat that I need to be aware of and tracking. And so that helps me kind of process the information and respond to it. So where are we at now? Well, pretty even. You know, each of the teams, blue and red, has a rocket base and a garrison. No one has managed to cap this intersection yet. And so that's good. We do have a little bit of an advantage here, I think, right, in terms of that, in terms of what's going on thus far, a little bit of an edge. You can see, you know, there's good scores being put up by the teams, right? We've got a decent score here as well. That's not bad. And so we're going to get right back into this and see what we can do to make an attack on the enemy. Whew, sorry, a long night last night for me working. So, all right, back in action with sortie number 2. Sortie is the official term for respawning, right? You're in sortie number 2. We see enemy planes there. We see a call for an attack on the airbase, and you see the plane that responded is a plane that's already at the airbase. Calling attention to things, again, is good. You know, check the mini-map, see if it's going to be a worthwhile opportunity. It's also a way to ping your teammates, but your teammates are already there as well, right? Although some of them may be working on the rocket base over there too, which is great because look, there's 5 friendly planes at the mini base, airbase, rocket base. Excuse me, I'm going to get it right one of these days. Rocket base against one of theirs. So we're about to flip that rocket base to blue, which is awesome. I'm not sure you needed to take this fight with the MiG-9. He's near your spawn. He's blasting by. He's a tier up from you in the lineup, which means he's definitely faster than you. He might be more maneuverable than you. And it also is taking place outside the zone. So it's, at the end of the day, a kill that doesn't really mean anything to the overall match. Now, there's the concern of him getting on a tail and doing something, so I understand if that's the issue. And these vertical maneuvers back and forth are actually not a bad way to go. You're actually bleeding him of speed at this point. For a faster plane, that's awesome. And of course, great guns on. And then he tries to turn and loop the same energy trap as before, but you pull inside of him this time. You're able to pull inside of him this time because you are also at a low energy state. And so all the bots do that job well. It's a one-trick pony a lot of the time with it. And so we get that clip. It's not quite enough to kill him, which is part of the frustrating thing about these guns. But as you can see there, other players have spawned in, including the arrow, and off we are to the mid part. But the enemy is captured there. We've captured the air base. So what's the next logical move? So Lose Dudes is going to choose to go to the rocket base, and I absolutely endorse that. At this point, you know, that's probably going into all that red in a locked zone, probably not the best idea. So let's go defend what we have, see if we can get it, especially since we recognize the B-29 is over there, right? And that's a threat and an issue and a big problem. Now, one thing I would have done differently here, we can head into the zone. We can try to challenge the B-29. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to do so. Killing high-tier bombers, you need sustained DPS rather than burst DPS, and these guns overheat at 5 seconds. Sustained DPS, in other words, machine gun fire and light cannon fire is better for knocking down high-tier bombers, unless you have sniper cannons like the Arrow does or the I-215, something like that. These are not actually sniper cannons. They're just heavy cannons. So not great taking on the B-29. But we do have 2 of these multi-rolls coming in, and we know we have good speed and probably better maneuverability than both of them. So this is where I would have turned. I would have said, all right, let's gain some altitude. We've got good speed. Let's bank that into altitude, which will also slow us down, which will allow us to move into engagement range with one of these multi-rolls, which are both coming this way as well. As it turns out, the B-29 goes down, but not before capping the zone, and the Tu-10 is still there as well. So at this point, we have an option on where to be next, and I get taking on the bomber. He's right in front of us. He's already low health, so your guns can put a dent in him, and so this is certainly worth pursuing to knock him out of the air. But I'm going to suggest an alternate course of action having knocked him out of the air, and that is that we turn again, and the goal is to stay here and capture this base, and that is everyone's first instinct. However, even though the zone is now unlocked, rocket bases only have 2 defensive fighters, and they're both heavy fighters, and we're diving. So heavy fighters are going to be up high, especially in a tier 9 match, right? There we go. So we want to stay on this plane. We want to stay with them, and we also want to engage the rear element. We've engaged the front element, which means when we turn in to face this 410, the other enemy bot off to our right here is going to be on our tail. Just something to be aware of when you do those engagements. But also in the greater game, and the strategic aspect of this, those 2 heavy airplanes are worth 80 capture points, and you need 160 to flip the zone. So unless a ground attacker or a bomber or a multi-roll comes in here to help out, it's not going to make a difference what we do here, right? We're not going to flip the zone. We can make it a little faster, but it's difficult. And of course, we get pegged by the heavy one there, and we lose our tail, and we use our control surface operator. I would argue against using repair control surface modules, particularly on planes that are not elite. The reality is the pneumatic control assist does the same thing, and it works even when your control surfaces are not broken. So unless you're trying to discipline yourself to play as an energy fighter and not turn so much, it's always good to have that pneumatic boost for when you need to pull inside just occasionally. And we're chasing this plane. Have we looked at the mini-map? Guys who are watching the video, did you check the mini-map? If so, you know that there's another enemy plane right behind us. These heavy defense aircraft operate in pairs, and they operate very well. It's another thing the bots do good. And so there's a need to break off immediately. We can't follow these guys up. It's really hard to do this, especially against tier 9 bots when you're down a tier. And, you know, there is another wing gone to the heavy cannon fire. And so that makes it difficult to do things. So we're going to lose some altitude here, and again, he's already out. You know, the best thing you can do here is dive out, trade that altitude for speed so that you're not a sitting duck, so you can avoid some of the AA fire that's being taken. Again, it's brutal. It's up-tiered AA, and so that's really hard. Fortunate to get a little bit of a regen and get 10 HP back there. And this is hard. This is hard because it's a moving, turning shot with low-velocity cannons. Fortunately, there's 4 other planes here now, right? And they're working on it and getting it done. And together, you guys are able to get the flip. And that is awesome. So where next? The ping is for the middle. And by the way, let's pause this again and check. So the ping is for the middle. And that is awesome. It's something we can do, and I know Lose Dudes wants to get in here to get some wrench. But it's tempting to go over here and defend, right? We're up on spaces. They've just flipped this zone, so rockets are going to be firing here in a little bit. But we have sort of enough people here that you're not, and these guys are going to go back to the center too. So I might be tempted in this scenario to come over here and defend, and then come back in on a flanking attack on anybody that they've put into the zone. And you can notice something interesting here too, by the way, and this is why you also check these things in flight. Notice that our specialized P-80 has moved to a Spitfire, so he's trying to keep this zone locked down. He's moved into a defensive posture, using that availability of the airfield to swap aircraft, which is pretty cool. And that's good. Because of that, and because they don't really have a counter to a Spitfire 5 in the middle, holding on the airbase should be a little bit easier. And so that's another reason to maybe use this high-speed energy fighter to get over the other side. And we're diving and picking up speed, which is good. We want that wrench. I don't think you have to dive any lower than about 1,000 meters to pick up wrench. So I would have stopped at 1,000, leveled out, kept that speed, and just kind of pushed it through, maybe using the boost to maintain it. But good. We've got wrench. We're in good shape. Their rockets have started to launch. Almost got hit by one there. And look, there's a Spitfire coming in. Their 262 pilot has changed to a Spitfire. And that's an uh-oh moment, right? I don't even think I noticed that when I looked at the control panels before. And maybe it happened. Maybe that's why there was a Spitfire to Spitfire swap, whatever else. Just in this single glance, we know two things. We know this B-29 is dead. We know that because the XP-67 is on him. It's a head-on attack, but he can handle that with his large HP pool and sustained DPS from the guns. And I know, Lose Dudes, you're about to die because you're about to engage in a losing battle. The best thing to do at this point with what's on the screen, hit that boost, 7 seconds of it, right? We've got it. Go for a head-on with the Spitfire 14 where our heavy cannons can be super effective. And we're trading with an even tier pilot, maybe crippling him, and then keep buzzing on, right? Make him turn and follow, and the other, hopefully, planes in the zone, air defense aircraft, whatever else can deal with him. Or maybe he ignores you and you can loop around and finish him off. That's where I would be headed at this point. Secondarily, if I didn't see that, or I wasn't confident in engaging the Spitfire, I'd be looping up to clear our XP-67's tail, because undoubtedly the Me-209 is, F3 supporting the B-29C, slave to it, and it's probably going to be on his tail in a moment here. The one thing we absolutely do not want to do is what actually happens, which is engaging the B-29. Now, when you are attacking heavy bombers, like the B-29 forts, you want to do a belly-up shark attack, just like this, but we want to break off before we get into the envelope, the rear weapons envelope of that plane. So we start out good. We've made some attacks. Good. Now right here, dive out. Loop over, dive out, get away from the guns. Because if not, we're going to die. There's about 2,000 HP left on this guy. We've got 5 seconds of damage, 5 seconds of trigger time, and then we're going to start taking fire and be directly in the weapons envelope of the most dangerous place to be, which is on the tail of a B-29. The top guns and the bottom guns and the rear guns all shredding us simultaneously. 2,240 HP left. This is not the fight to pick. And again, there's other planes behind us, 2 other planes behind us, and we got a swarm of guys. And more importantly, you should also be checking, you got squall line. So if we die, we can't influence the match anymore after this. That would be a shame. So we're at 254 HP. Watch, Voltrak has dropped his bombs, and now he's going to switch to guns. He's going to hit T for turret, and he's going to manually lock in, and the pain has begun. So let's look at this. We're at 709 on the video. How long before we lose those 200 hit points? 4 seconds? 5 seconds? Yeah, 5 seconds. So 5 seconds to death. It's brutal. It needs a nerf. That should not be the case for anything in the game, particularly not dealing with the same tier aircraft, right? That's just wild, but that is what we're dealing with the B-29. And the other reason, by the way, I wouldn't engage the Voltak in the B-29 is he's made a sack play. So he has captured the air zone for his team by flying low, by using bombs and guns, but it's cost him. The XP-67 has whacked him. The air defense aircraft have whacked him, and the Spitfire has whacked him as well, and so he is gone. And it looks like Borber has switched to an XP-67 there. So a lot of airfield swapping on this one, right? But he's made a sack play. He's captured the airbase, but he's out now too. So from here on out, they've got the advantage and the momentum. And we've got to scramble to win the rest of the match, and we can't do that because we can't respawn, right? So it's always good to stay alive after that squall line, if at all possible. Now, we've got 5 aircraft to 3 in this zone, so pretty confident that your team is blue team is going to flip things back over. I'm not confident in the bot taking the base there, but at least there is a bot bomber left and some bot ground attack aircraft left to kind of deal with some of the red zones. And just these couple of minutes here, God, you can see how bad the AI on the bots is. They really don't know what they're doing for the most part, right? But there is an advantage here, and then a couple of the enemy planes are already down, and so that's helpful. And it looks like, yeah. So hopefully we pull this out. I know that zone's got to be flipped, but the airfield, we got the rocket base going. That's great. Oh, we got both our bombers left, so that's good as well, right? All of these things are helpful. Borber, unfortunately, is going to pay the price, getting knocked down, and so now all 4 of our human pilots are gone, and that's never a great feeling, particularly when you're down on zones. So there's still 2, at least 2. It looks like 3 if Mikolo is a human pilot on that team. So for all intents and purposes, this match should be a win for Red at this point. But fortunately, the fortunes of war and the craziness of the zones that are captured and how it works out, it's not going to be that way. Keelarn obviously gets the Spit as wrecking airbase. Yes, he is. And that's one of the reasons why if you encounter Spitfires on a map like this, your best bet is actually to work the perimeters of the map, right? The Spitfire is a little overpowered. It can lock down a zone completely, and you don't want to tangle with it unless you have the energy and the speed to do so, to make diving runs on it, which is something the 250 can do if it needs to. So good news, though, we're still working things, and look, the rocket base has been flipped. How cool is that? The AI bot bombers over there did their job and flipped it. Here our AI bot ground attackers are not dropping bombs for some reason. They're just casually shooting light cannons at ground targets, right? But fortunately for us and for you guys, for the blue team, 150 points up now, and both the rocket base is taken. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be a matter of time before everything gets closed out. And so that will indeed wrap up the match for us today. So what do we learn from all of this? Well, a bunch of things. Just remember how much speed you dump when you're turning horizontally rather than vertically. That is an issue, especially for a speed fighter like the 250, something we want to take into account. And also learned, hopefully, a little bit about watching Minimap and being aware of positions and enemy aircraft. That is super important. And also knowing the enemy lineup and how to combat it, right? And being aware of airfields can change the scenario, although that's a lot of plane swapping. I don't see that very often. Everybody was all in on the victory, which does make for a good match. And Lose Dudes, you certainly contributed to it, getting some points in. And I think that's good. There's some good instincts you have as a pilot there. And so while you say, I want to have a better score, I want to have more of an impact, and I would say, sure, absolutely. Hone those instincts. Your defensive flying is excellent. Work on the map stuff, work on the energy fighting, and you've got the guns down on the 250 pretty good as well. They can be finicky. Just watch the distance on it. But everyone else watching this, I hope you learned a little something as well from Lose Dude's instincts on defensive flying and his choice of zones to go to, because that was also top notch. Looking at the map, knowing where to go next is also really important as well. So hopefully all of that is useful to you guys. As I said, this is a bonus video. I have another video, part 2 of energy fighting, that'll come out towards the end of the week, probably Thursday, Friday. But I wanted to get in and get this out as well. And again, if you'd like for me to do a review of your replay, I'm happy to do that. Drop me a line here on YouTube, send me a note in the Warplanes Discord or on the forums, and we'll see what we can work out. And until next time, good luck and good hunting.